Hey guys, I just finished doing Everest Basecamp, EBC for short, and I just thought I'd share a bunch of tips with you that I learned over the course of my adventure. I did tons of research and got varying information about different things like permits and guides and booking a tour, and so I just thought I'd share with you my experiences and what you actually need to know, and some information I guarantee you haven't heard anywhere else. At least for sure one thing. Anyways, I hope you find some of these tips helpful. Now let's get started. Number one is you do not need to hire a guide or go on an organized tour. If you want to grab a porter, you can grab one in Lukla for about 15 bucks a day. I found out I needed one after I went to Lukla, and I ended up getting one in Namche Bazaar, which is the next big town, and it cost me about 25 bucks a day. And your porter basically acts as your guide. So if you think that your bag is going to be too heavy, or you just want someone to walk with you and carry some stuff, then definitely grab a porter in Lukla when you get off the plane at the airport. There's tons of them standing around, and you can pretty much grab anyone and they'll be perfectly fine. You definitely do not need to go on a tour, but if you do decide to do a tour, definitely book it in Kathmandu. It'll be a lot cheaper than booking it online. Number two is the permits. I heard various things that you need to get this trekker's card in Kathmandu, or you get your permits here or there. The only permits you need to get are at the actual trail. When you get off in Lukla and you start hiking, eventually you'll cross a gate and you get both permits there. You get the trekker's card there for the Everest Basecamp trek, and the national park ticket you can get there as well. And those are $30 each. And those are the only two things that you need for the Everest Basecamp trek, and you do not have to get anything in advance. You'll get it all at the start of the trail. Number three is do the best that you can to leave early. I was leaving before 7 every day because almost all the tours start at 8 or 9 and the trail gets extremely crowded. So if you leave early enough, you'll have at least 1 to 2 hours where there's nobody really on the trails. The porters haven't started yet. The yak trains and donkey trains haven't started yet. And so it's nice because you can actually get ahead of the crowd and you'll have a little bit of time to yourself, which is exactly what you want when you're in such a spectacular setting. One of the first things that you should know about the Everest Basecamp trek, in April and May, it's extremely crowded. All the climbers for Everest Summit are going at the same time. And so all the porters are crowded on the trail. Tons of tours are crowded on the trail. There's tons of yak trains and donkey trains. So the trail is extremely crowded. So this is something to keep in mind if you're going to hike in April and May. And it does take away from the experience of being in such a majestic setting. That being said, it is still worth doing. As far as where you should try and get to each day, if you can and you leave early enough on your first day, make it to Manjo. If you think you can make it all the way to Namche, then I would suggest doing that, but it is a very steep and grueling climb for a couple hours at the end to get to Namche Bazaar. So if you're pretty tired, then I would suggest definitely doing the 5 or 6K to Manjo, because then you're pretty much at the bottom of the start of the climb to Namche Bazaar. Keep in mind though, because I left really early, like at 5, and I got to the national park and I couldn't get through because the national park entrance is just after Manjo and they don't open till 6. So I was stuck waiting anyways. So if you do stay in Manjo and you can start off at 6 o'clock, you'll get to Namche sometime late in the morning and relax at Namche and get yourself settled and squared away. It typically starts to get cloudy in the afternoons, so if you leave early, you'll have better weather. And especially for your base camp trek, you're going to want to leave very early. I got there by 10 o'clock and there was hardly anybody there. And I had spectacular weather. And everybody after me, when all the tours started to show up, the weather started to move in about 20 minutes after I arrived at base camp. It had complete clouds and some snow. So you definitely want to leave early for your best chance of having a clear day at base camp. You should budget for about 30 odd bucks a day for accommodation and food. It gets pretty expensive the higher up you go for food. They charge for everything. They charge for Wi-Fi. They charge for charging your devices. Definitely pick up a SIM card at the airport or anywhere in town. I picked up a SIM card for both the big telecom companies. Each one can work better in the mountainous areas, and they're fairly cheap, like 15 odd bucks for 50 gigs. So if you didn't need that much data, then you can get both SIM cards for like 20 bucks. Or if you have an eSIM, I'm not sure how the eSIMs work. I wish somebody had told me this, and I have not seen this info anywhere else. But before you leave home, try and pick up one of these. Like I was saying before, they charge you to charge any device that you have. It could be like 3 odd bucks for your phone, up to 10 bucks for your power bank. But if you have one of these, then almost every place I stayed had a screw-in light bulb. You can charge your phone in your room for no charge. When you finally get up to Le Boucher, I would suggest staying there and doing your base camp trek from there. Le Boucher is the second to last town before you hit base camp. The next town is Gorak Shep. And yes, if you go to Gorak Shep, you'll have a short trek to base camp, but it's got less services, and not that any of the places are great. If you stay in Le Boucher, it's a long day to go to base camp, but when you get down there, then you'll already be significantly better off on your way back, coming down the next day. If you have the energy, I suggest climbing Kalapatar, which is right by Everest Base Camp. Apparently you get the best views from Everest there, and so if you're heading off to Base Camp you go to the right, Kalapatar you go off to your left, and you do quite a significant climb up. And people said it's the best place to get views of Everest, because even though you go to Everest Base Camp, the whole trek, all you see is a tiny little peak of Everest. I didn't do it. I didn't have the energy. I was exhausted. But if you have the energy, I definitely suggest you do that before you go to Base Camp. When you're coming back from Le Boucher, I definitely suggest going the way of Goiko Lake to come back down rather than coming back the same way you came. You go through the Cholo Pass, which means you cross a glacier, and then you climb down the other side and you get to Goiko Lake. Goiko Lake's spectacular and beautiful if you get good weather. I didn't have great weather and it was still spectacular and beautiful. And it's definitely less crowded than the EBC route. And then from Goiko Lake, you can make it to Namche Bazaar in one day. Obviously it gets cold pretty high up and you're doing more trekking like I was doing and didn't want to drag a warm jacket around. You can rent a jacket there for about $1 a day. I also rented a sleeping bag, which I never use. So you do not need to rent a sleeping bag. You do not need a sleeping bag. All the tea houses have plenty of blankets, but I would suggest at the very least get some kind of a sleeping bag liner or something that you can sleep in, because some of the places I stayed, for sure the sheets were suspect and definitely weren't changed. So I would definitely bring something to cover your pillow with and that you can sleep in the usually probably dirty sheets. But other than that, you definitely do not need to drag a sleeping bag up there. Some places give you a free room when you eat there, and since you have to eat somewhere in these small villages anyways, most of the places you just eat at the place you're staying. So you might as well ask, and if you get the free room, then great. You spend about $15-20 on food and it all works out. You save a little bit of dough. I flew from Ramshap up to base camp because the flights weren't flying from Kathmandu. I'm not sure when they actually do fly from Kathmandu, but it's a 5-6 hour hell bus ride from Kathmandu to Ramshap, and then you got to take the flight. And if you do that, you have to book the earliest flight because the flights consistently get canceled. My flight, I booked the 7:30 one. I got on an earlier flight for 7. They changed my ticket, and my plane ended up being the last one that got out that day. All the flights after me were canceled. And a guy who I was talking to who was on the plane behind me gave up after 3 days. He couldn't get out. If you want an even better chance, then just take a helicopter from Kathmandu. I took a helicopter back from Lukla. It's more expensive, about double the price, around $500 US. But the convenience of not having to do the 5-hour bus ride and being right in Kathmandu when you fly there and back. If you can afford it, then take the helicopter. If you're on a tight budget, then you're stuck with the plane and cross your fingers and hope for the best. As far as water goes, they try and encourage you not to buy the bottled water. As you go higher, it's about $1 a liter and then starts to get more expensive. But they actually charge more for boiled water. It was $3 a liter for boiled water, which makes no sense when they're trying to reduce your plastic use. So what I ended up doing was I had the water purification tablets and a filter, and I never used my filter. I just used the tablets and I tried it out and it worked fine. So you can filter your water and use the tablets, but you don't need to buy the boiled water, and that will save you money on the bottled water as well. So like I was saying, if you do Goiko Lake, it's 23K from Goiko to Namche, and it's a long, grueling day, but you can definitely do it. And then definitely from Namche back to Lukla is about 18K, and pretty much everybody does that in one day as well. But there are places to stop on your way back from Goiko Lake between there and Namche, so if it is tiring or you don't want to go the whole way, then you can definitely spend an extra night there. So those are some of my top tips for the Everest Base Camp. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments. And if there's anything you guys think I missed, then let me know. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and good luck on your Everest Base Camp journey.